Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 50. The Risks and Consequences of Falling Off Buildings. It was early November, and the nights were getting cold. Neither of them visibly changed clothes to fit the climate, but Shota hoped that Ivy had some thermal wear to throw on under their usual get-up like he did. Surely they would be shivering if they didn't. Once the sun went down and took any of its lingering warmth, the temperature dropped to freezing point or lower. Well, it had to at least be freezing because ice was starting to form on the rooftops. He'd need to switch over to his winter boots that had retractable spikes in the soles. Ivy was going to need something like that too if they didn't already. They'd already been active for nearly 2 years at this point, so they must have some way of combating the slippery ice. This was all running through his mind as they traversed across the rooftops. Ivy was right ahead of him, and they were about to jump off the ledge of the roof they were currently perched on. As they bent their legs and pushed themselves over and out above the sheer 10-story drop below, he saw their foot slip out from beneath them, and they started falling fast. Shit, shit, shit. Shota dashed to the ledge and shot out a length of his capture weapon, and his heart didn't start beating again until he felt the tension pull him forward. Then there was a loud bang and an even louder crack and a scream. Shit, 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 shit. He'd been leaning away from the ledge to brace himself for the pull of Ivy's weight on the end of the line, so he couldn't see what had happened. But when he looked over, he saw that he had them hanging by the ankle, and they were half draped over the railing of a fire escape. It sounded like they were biting down on their lip to keep themselves from screaming out again. Oh, oh no. Their leg wasn't supposed to be bent that way. Frickin' let go, eraser! They choked out between deep breaths and strangled moans. Kid, let me get down there for I've got the railing and you're holding me up by a broken leg. Let go, they interrupted. That didn't seem like a good idea at all. The pain of being suspended by a broken leg was probably going to make them pass out soon, and letting it drop might be the straw that broke the camel's back. Before he could figure out a good way to get down there and help them himself, Ivy unsheathed the wrist-mounted knife he'd given them and slashed themselves free. He hardly even had time to freak out before their weight dropped and they stayed put, dangling by one hand gripped tight on the railing. By the time he got down there, they had already resheathed their knife and started pulling themselves back up. What the frick is wrong with this kid? They're gonna give him a heart attack one of these days. Once he helped them up onto the fire escape, they collapsed into the corner against the wall and glared at him. I'm gonna frickin' kill you, eraser, they declared with no preamble. You're gonna kill me? You're the one that just fell off a roof. That's not my fault, he shot back. I would have been fine if you didn't grab me by the ankle and throw me shin first into the damn fire escape, they argued through gritted teeth. My apologies. I'll be sure to take the chance next time, he bit out. They were going to need Recovery Girl for this. They couldn't set a bone themselves, and even if they could, they'd be out for months. Neither of them could afford that right now. Uptown couldn't afford that right now. As much as he didn't want to admit it, with all the support gear still going around the streets, he didn't think he could patrol alone safely. He needed someone to have his back, and so did Ivy, and Uptown wouldn't fare well without them. With that in mind, he pulled out his phone to start setting a plan into motion. Eraserhead. Need a ride to RG. Broken leg, not life-threatening. Can you spare the time? Tsukashi. Shit. Yeah. On my way. You or Ivy? Eraserhead. Ivy. He closed the chat with the detective and pulled up Chio's contact. Ivy was breathing through the pain, but they didn't ask about what he was doing yet. They seemed suitably distracted. That was probably for the best. He didn't need them fighting him on this. Aizawa. Sorry for the late message. Non-life-threatening, but it's an emergency. Broken leg, but they can't go to a hospital, and we need discretion. He knew that she always left her ringer on full blast when she slept, but as the seconds passed by, he was tempted to just say screw it and leave a message warning her that he was going to show up on her doorstep. Tsukashi wasn't even here yet. They had to wait anyway, so he took a deep breath and turned to check in on Ivy. Their eyes were closed, and they had their head leaned back against the wall, still taking controlled breaths. They weren't going to like this. Ivy, I'm going to carry you down to street level, okay? He phrased it as a question, but he wasn't really asking. Like hell you are, Ivy argued anyway. I'm not actually asking your permission. That was a warning, not a request. Come on, he insisted. He turned his back to them so they could loop their arms around his shoulders. You're not giving me a frickin' piggyback ride eraser, they growled. It's either this or I scoop you up like a petulant toddler. Your choice. He shot back. They let out a frustrated groan before conceding and grabbing onto his shoulders. All right, up in 3, 2, 1, he warned before jostling them up into position and looping his arms under their legs. He both heard and felt the muffled scream they let out into his shoulder. They had to be in a lot of pain because he didn't hear another wisecrack for the entire journey back to street level. He could hear their breath hitch with each step through. He could hear their breath hitch with each step, though. Damn, hell. He didn't have time to feel guilty about it. When they got there, he set them down on a bus stop bench and started looking out for Tsukashi's car. Where the heck are we even going? Buses don't run this late over here. They finally spoke up. Going to that friend I talked about. You need proper medical attention for that. I don't care how proficient you are. I'm not letting you set your own bones. He tried to shut down their arguments before they could start. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Never set a bone on my own. They surprisingly relented. On their own? So they'd had help before? Did they go to a hospital or did they have somebody jury-rig them in a splint? Were they already running around on poorly healed fractures? Not your first broken bone, I take it, he asked, doing his best to subtly probe for more information. They let out a pained laugh before responding, No, it's not. Wish I could say it was. Those casts get so dang itchy. It's been a while, though. Well, on the bright side, it was good to know that they'd received medical attention when it was needed in the past. It seemed unlikely that they would have gotten a proper cast without having seen an actual doctor. Again, the kids seemed to have a way of both being far too reckless and knowing when they were in over their head. It was all or nothing with them, and he never knew which it was going to be. Finally, he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Shuzenji, I'd prefer you not bring criminals to my house. Should we meet somewhere else? Aizawa, they're not dangerous, and I'll make sure we're not followed. We can meet somewhere else if you're more comfortable with that, but I don't think it will be an issue. Shuzenji, I'm too old to be out this late. If it won't be an issue, then just bring them here. Aizawa, thank you, Chio. We will be there in 30. What are we waiting for, if not the bus, then? They asked. Sakashi. He responded bluntly. I'm not getting in that narc's car, they exclaimed. Well, are you going to walk then? He shot back with a raised brow. Just then he saw headlights around the corner. Upon spotting them, the detective turned their lights on and let the siren let out a single whoop. It was almost impressive how irritating the man could be. The way he jabbed at Shota's patience transcended language and most other forms of communication. This car ride was going to be hell on earth for the both of them, wasn't it? He muttered some expletives before turning back to Ivy, who was glaring at him so intensely that it was almost unnerving. Fortunately, he was used to Ivy's BS, so he was largely unaffected. Come on, I'll help you into the back, he said as Tsukashi pulled up. If we start going even vaguely in the direction of the precinct, I will tuck and roll. I swear to... Yeah, I get it. Just get in the damn car. He cut them off. They sent another glare at him for that, but they let him support most of their weight and walk them over to the car and help them situate themselves before getting into the passenger seat. He took a moment to plug the address into the detective's GPS, and then they were off. Once they started driving, Tsukashi spoke up. Didn't think I'd ever live to see the day that you were in the back seat of a cruiser, Ivy, he taunted. Ivy just glared at him through the rearview mirror and gave him a double one-finger salute. So, am I allowed to ask what happened, or is it for the best that I don't know? He asked cautiously. Eraser broke my leg. Ivy piped up from the back seat. Tsukashi shot him a look, and when he didn't argue, his eyes went wide. Seriously? He squawked out incredulously. They fell off the damn roof, and I caught them, he defended. I would have been fine, they argued through gritted teeth. No, Ivy, you could have been fine. You also could have been dead. I'd rather you have a broken leg than be a stain that someone has to scrub out of the concrete. He barked out a little too harshly. The car was silent after that. Tsukashi kept alternating between looking at him, the road, and the rearview mirror back to Ivy until they pulled up to Shuzenji's house and Shota got out of the car. Do you guys need help? Tsukashi asked from the driver's seat. They both chorused a firm no in perfect unison. So he put his hands up in mock surrender and kept his mouth shut. After a few moments and a lot of cursing, he got Ivy out of the back seat, leaning against him and standing on their good leg. Thanks for the ride, detective, he called over his shoulder as he led Ivy to the front door. He owed that man a coffee or something. A good one from that shop on Block 36, or maybe something stronger than that. He could use something stronger than that right about now. He didn't see this ending well. End of chapter.